beautiful clouds?
Those aren't clouds, Daddy. Those are chemtrails.
Chemtrails? What are chemtrails?
Chemical trails, Daddy, and they're very bad.
I look up to the sky. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why? I don't wanna see you cry. I just wanna see you smile, baby. I look up to the sky. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why? I don't wanna see you die. I just wanna see you smile, baby. Me look up in the sky and me can't see clear. Blue skies are gold and white lines up here. Them say it's natural, me not believe them. Them say it's vital, me not listen to them. Something strange is going on. Feel it in my heart, sensing something strong. Gotta save the future, put the rumors to rest. Gotta help the children and give it our best. Can stand around and be blind to the frost. Can taking no more, how can they relax? I look up to the sky. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why? I don't wanna see you cry. I just wanna see you smile, baby. I look up to the sky. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why? I don't wanna see you die. I just wanna see you smile, baby. Living on earth, we must respect the earth. Human and animal, we all deserve the right to peace and opportunity. Nowadays we are blind.
Hi, this is Dane Wigington with GeoEngineeringWatch.org radio for the week of October 25th, 2014. A lot of events this week in a lot of arenas. First, in the West, we see now there's been a very, very significant change in the scheduled weather for the continental U.S. We have Russ Tanner with us, by the way, as always. Thank you, Russ, for making the show happen technically, and Greg Palin, great voice from the southeast U.S. Greg has been engaged in the fight for so long in many arenas, the fight for the common good. And if we had more people engaged as much as Greg and Russ, we would be in a different position right now, I'm quite sure. But I know more people are engaging, and I'm very grateful for that. Back to the weather changes for our scheduled weather in the continental U.S. Now, the scheduled weather, again, this is all it is because Raytheon does the weather maps for the National Weather Service and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So this is simply the scheduled weather. It's not a forecast. It's what's planned. But in the last 4 days, the projections for the next several months have changed completely. We can speculate as to why this has happened, but we're seeing a different approach that we saw a number of years back, where they'll funnel moisture in, the climate engineers funnel moisture in over the West Coast, heavily aerosolizing it, creating massive swaths of rainless cloud that's a mix of aerosol and natural. They migrate the moisture over the west so that these projections of massive rainfall amounts don't happen in most places. And yesterday morning, there was a largely rainless cloud stretching from the Pacific coast all the way past the Great Lakes. And this is the goal of SRM. It's the largest cloud cover they can possibly generate, regardless of the consequences. That's one of the goals. And meteorologically speaking, there's no question these meteorologists know something's wrong. There's no question about that. They simply don't have the spine to speak out. And I understand this to some degree. I mean, we have now a notice that a NOAA employee has been jailed by the FBI for trying to download some sort of information that appears to be perhaps related to the sediment behind dams. And I know the sediment is contaminated, and I know it's showing up. I have a friend with Fish and Game in California that has alerted me to this, that they're showing the exact elements that we've named in precipitation showing up in very high quantities in the sediment behind dams. This is where we would expect it to settle out, and in fact it is. Aluminum and barium being two primary elements. So was this NOAA employee perhaps the one that's jailed by the FBI, now perhaps trying to get at some of this data? It's hard to tell. Hopefully we'll be able to get more information about the situation. So again, agencies like NOAA, like the Alzheimer's Association, which we talked about last week, they're simply co-opted from the top down, and people inside these agencies, some are just working for a paycheck. They don't care what they do. They don't care what part of the collective insanity they play, as long as they're getting a paycheck for it. No excuse for those people. They should be held accountable as accomplices to the crime. Other people are simply afraid to speak out, understandably so, as we see from this NOAA employee. But one way or another, we have to reach critical mass. We have to have people speaking out. And as soon as enough do, they won't be able to jail everybody. They won't. In fact, once the population as a whole understands what's been done to them, the whole equation will change, and we need to reach that point. So how much of global GDP, we see all this discussion on stations like Bloomberg and CNN. They talk about global gross domestic product and what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, and all this is complete fabricated nonsense. You can't have increasing global GDP when nature is imploding. In fact, something like, Russ, can you hear me? Russ? Greg?
I can hear you, Dane.
I went off air, I think, for a minute. You know, I have these phone issues all the time now whenever I'm doing anything that matters. So I hope the audibility is okay still, because I'm having some strange noises on my end. So anyway,
you sound good to me, Dane.
Okay, thanks, guys. The amount of global GDP provided by nature for free is the majority of GDP. So again, we hear these organizations talking about when GDP will be X amount of years down the road. It's all completely spun nonsense. As nature implodes, global GDP will crash, and that's happening now. So back to, again, this weather that's flowing in off the west coast, we have this switch that I've tried to bring to light for a very long time, that the geoengineers, in their attempt to cool part of the country, fry another. So we've had the big switch now take place. Now they're cooling the west, and what do we have happening in much of the rest of the country? Record warm. And this is exactly what we have said would happen the whole time, that they can't cool the whole country, and when they try to cool, and they try to do their operations in every sense, though they can cool certain regions temporarily, it comes at the cost of a worsened overall warming. In fact, the last year, from September 2014 going back to September 2013, that's the warmest 12-month period ever recorded on the planet. Climate engineering is not making the situation better, it's making it worse in the attempt to hide the damage already done. So, you know, I know a lot of people are discouraged about how immense this challenge appears to be that we're trying to fight, this global power structure. But it only takes a break in the dam to cause the dam to breach and blow. If we can just work together and put a crack in that dam, we'll see our situation change radically. And when we see that, you know, so much, I'm astounded at the technology that we have, that we can talk on a box that we hold in our hand to someone on the other side of the planet. The sort of technology we see all around us is incredible. And that men can build such things is astounding. But yet men can't save themselves from themselves. That with this very visibly unsustainable paradigm that's modern civilization, I mean, incredibly, obviously unsustainable, and yet how few see this, that we can't possibly stay on this track and survive. There's no chance, absolutely no chance. We must change course. So as things become more desperate again for the climate engineers, the sort of swapping of weather patterns that we see going on right now, massive spraying over the west. They basically use the west for a swamp cooler to try to cool much of the rest of the country with these big artificial clouds. And back to what nature did do for man without any effort from man. But now man in his intervention is throwing everything he can at just trying to control nature, doing nothing but harm, and burning up the remaining resources we have. And this is how the paradox looks so incredibly insane. So they're flying jets around the sky 24/7, thousands of them. Some of these jets burn almost a gallon a second. Try to comprehend that. A gallon a second. In the case of a KC-135, they burn about 2,700 gallons an hour. That's close to a gallon a second. So all this to try to control what once worked fine by itself. And this is the sort of insanity we live in. And then to try to manipulate things on the ground by the GMO foods, the sort of resistant pests that has generated, that now it's ever harder to fight. Man's battle against nature is a battle against himself, period. How obvious can this be? And now when we watch TV, you almost never see a blue sky. Almost never. I don't care if you're watching a commercial, a newsreel, you almost never see it. And as the climate system has been skewed, now we see what appears to be an effort to create the appearance of a change of seasons where the temperatures are no longer causing certain changes to take place in nature. I just got a comment when I posted on a GeoWatch article from someone from Alaska who has noted the leaves have all wadded up dead on the trees, but they're still hanging there in the trees. They're not falling. I first noted this in Northern California about 4 years ago after a rain event. The deciduous trees, all the leaves uniformly, across species, not a single species, they wadded up dead on the trees, but they hung there all winter long. And this happened uniformly in our region after a rain event. It never got cold enough for the trees to fall from, or for the leaves to fall from the trees, but yet they all uniformly at the same period after a rain event died. Are they, in fact, putting something in a rain event at a particular time in the season to create the illusion of a change of season, that it's fall and all the leaves have died now? And people don't even notice this. And you drive all over Northern California, there's trees literally through the middle of winter hanging fully foliated with dead leaves that hang there all winter long. The trees never drop the leaves, and there are chemical substances that would cause this effect if they're in part of the mix, and it appears they are. So, again, back to the war against nature. From every level, as man intervenes and tries to cover a vast array of what was once done naturally by chemical toxic intervention, it can only end poorly. And that's where it's going to end if we stay on this track. And one more issue under this category, the chemical nucleated snows, which we're going to start seeing more of soon again. I don't think they're going to be able to pull off what they did in the last winter, because I think they're simply losing control of what they thought they could control. But we'll see more nucleated snows. And I remember one night that I documented in an article, I think the article was titled Engineered Snowstorms Wreaking Havoc Around the Globe. And it was very surreal. It was it was December 21st of 2012, and the temperature was about 40 degrees. All you could hear was aircraft overhead, and I live in a very, very remote area. There's no other sounds. All I could hear was aircraft overhead. It started to snow at about 40 degrees, these massive cotton ball-looking flakes coming down. And the only other sound I could hear after it continued for a while was the sound of trees crashing in the forest because of this concrete, heavy snow, because when the temperatures are 40 degrees, the atmosphere holds much more moisture. So these flakes are unnaturally heavy, they're unnaturally adhesive, and they stick to the trees, and the snow doesn't slough off the trees. So I remember this night particularly well because it's a feeling of helplessness when you know what they're doing above you. Again, all I could hear was aircraft and the sound of trees crashing in the forest, no other sound. And it felt like the most heinous, horrible, all-out assault against nature one could imagine. And again, all this attempt to do what nature once did naturally and not destructively. So this is the world we live in. If we want to change this world, people have to help. People have to get up off the bench and help. And I'm seeing a lot of people doing that now, and I'm very grateful for that. So I want people to keep an eye out for, as we head into winter, the chemically nucleated snows, for these radical changes in temperature. That, again, right now I believe that Denver was pushing the high 80s, I believe, yesterday. Very high temperatures, areas in Montana that snowed on September 10th and 11th, and temperatures in 20 degrees. We're pushing 80 yesterday. These radical swings in temperature, they're going to be more aggressive as time goes on, I believe, with their attempt to chemically nucleate moisture wherever they can get it. But in the course of doing this endothermic reaction that comes from trying to chemically nucleate the clouds to cool the temperature down on the ground causes a decrease in precipitation overall. We're seeing radical drought in South America. Sao Paulo is just about out of water completely. It can only destroy the natural processes that once maintained themselves with no effort. So, Greg, we'll open up the phone lines for calls in a few minutes. Greg, on the chemically nucleated snows, you did a lot to bring that to light. And refresh us again on what you did and what you saw with the snowstorms there, because Atlanta had a couple of very anomalous snowstorms last winter, did it not, where it just went from high temps to snow. You demonstrated on the snow exactly how unnatural it was, correct? Share that with us again.
Yeah, most definitely, Dane. I mean, when you look at what happens to, let's say, a snowball that you hold over a piping hot wood stove that had to be 400 or 500 degrees, and it takes, 10 minutes plus to get a drop of water out of a snowball, something's wrong. And growing up in northern Wisconsin, I saw a lot of snow, and you come in from outside, you got snow on your boots, you got a pool of water in short order, and it was as if the snow was bypassing the water stage and going directly to a gas, and we took little snowballs that looked like sausages, they were sausage-shaped, and took a MAP gas torch to them, and if anybody knows anything about MAP gas, it burns hotter than propane, and basically, on different occasions, we knew there was a difference because some of the snow would turn directly into water within seconds, and other of these snow sausages, I'll call them, would literally melt like plastic with no water, and it was really odd. And, some reported that I'm still with you guys, right? I really break it. Some in Atlanta reported that they got a plasticky smell. I didn't notice that so much, but definitely we had no liquid coming out of these snowballs, and it was odd because they actually put Brad Tanovich from CBS in Charlotte. I don't know, it was either CBS or NBC, might have been NBC, Charlotte, the head of the meteorology, the anchor actually. He actually addressed my snow video, and we kind of traced the times back, and they basically pulled him out of bed at 2 a.m. That's kind of odd that they would put a guy of that stature to address this situation, and then they come up with Phil Plait, the bad astronomer, making fun of the people in Atlanta that were experiencing this phenomenon with the snow, and they called it sublimation. Well, sublimation only happens under certain conditions, very dry conditions and certain temperatures, and you, I'm sure, probably know more than I do about that, Dane, but very, very odd behavior the way the snow acted.
Well, when they're doing that kind of damage control, when they drag their Top Gun out to try to counteract people's raising awareness, it shows that they're cognizant of the fact that people are waking up. In fact, this last week on Weather Channel, they did a demonstration, if you can call it that. It's called The Weather Wizard on Weather Channel, in between their reality shows they have now, which is most of their programming. But he tried to demonstrate why condensation trails are formed. I'm trying to come up with a video of this right now on the net, if I can find it. It was the most apathetic, ridiculous, lame demonstration I've ever seen. But the fact that they're having to try to address this to quell people's growing awareness is a sign that we're gaining ground. We are absolutely gaining ground, I think, quite quickly at this point. And when we have the sort of radical swings that we've now had in the scheduled weather for the next few months, and it's quite radical from what was, quote, predicted or scheduled. Now, again, they've done a complete change in their strategy for this winter. It appears. It may change again. I don't know. But the fact that as soon as they try to cool the west, other parts of the country go to record warm temperatures. Again, that's exactly what we have. I encourage people to look at this. You can't hide what's been done to the environment too much longer. Just like the Gulf of Mexico and the use of the Corexit chemical. they were able to hide some of the oil spill for a time, and they've certainly kept any cyclonic rotation from happening in the Gulf of Mexico because they don't want that sea of oil stirred up at the bottom. But in the end, when all the marine life dies off and people are getting sick everywhere, you can't hide it forever. And the same is true with the damage done to the climate now. The same is true. So I'm grateful for the HARP report. He's done a lot of good. I communicate with him often. He's putting out some very good data to help shine the light on exactly what they're doing with the aerosol operations meteorologically. It's helping us add to our level of information that we can disseminate because we need more people adding to this equation. He's done a good job of contributing. So anyway, people need to keep looking up, recognize the fact that, like over the West, Greg, you probably see this, Russ, you probably see it too. People have accepted it as normal. These featureless skies, drifting massive canopies of featureless sky. That's a telltale sign of aerosol operations. And people take it for granted because we've seen it in the northern latitudes for decades, literally for decades. And we know it's been going on that long because, in fact, the Stanford study from the Arctic from the 50s, which I have, stated that they were noting an, quote, Arctic haze that was comprised of metallic aerosols in the 50s. So you have the left hand that doesn't know what the right hand's doing. You have some people doing study trying to figure out where this material is coming from. You have other people actually putting out that material. And the scientific community is scratching their heads, and they're still scratching their heads today, which is a poor testament to the scientific community when they refuse to acknowledge what's going on. I listed some of the reasons why earlier, but this featureless canopy we see above us so often now, that's aerosolization, that's solar radiation management. People should remember clouds should be defined. Even when a storm's coming over, you should see darker, lighter patches of area. If there's a break in the clouds, you should see sun coming through. We don't see that. Have you guys noticed that? When you have a breakup in the storm afterward, and if they're aerosolizing overhead, you don't see any sun coming through. You guys take note of that?
I've seen it all the time. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a solid canopy. Russ, if you want to open up the phone lines, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody wants to call in, please call 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. Just call and keep your background noise quiet, and we'll call on you shortly.
Hey, Greg, down your way,
Yeah.
I know where your cabin is up in the woods. I mean, you meet a lot of people out in the woods that are pretty aware folks, right?
Pretty aware folks, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, most definitely. Dane, I really enjoy spending time up here because it seems like the mountain people tend to be much more dependent on nature in terms of growing gardens and hunting deer, and they're paying closer attention, and they're just more suspect and suspicious of government in general, which is obviously warranted. So I really find my activism is much more effective up here. You actually get people that I think they'll accept the geoengineering issue even if they haven't heard of it because they're aware of GMO or they're aware of fluoride or they're aware of the vaccines and some of the other issues. So they are more receptive. And when I'm in Atlanta, gosh, I get a little bit discouraged, but I keep hammering them.
So they get it, and this is where it's certainly the contrast is perplexing when you have people with just the powers of observation. They understand their surroundings. They remember what a sky should look like, and they can connect the dots. And on the flip side of this, I get letters from people from academia who state, this simply isn't true. It's not going on. Here's my PhD. If this was going on, we'd have peer-reviewed study stating it's going on. So therefore, we don't have this, so therefore it can't be going on. And I deal with so many letters from that type of person who, to break that down, they're simply saying the power structure controlled institutions who issue the peer-reviewed studies are not saying it's so, or they're saying it isn't so, so therefore it isn't so. And this is an astounding world we live in. No matter how visible it is, no matter how obvious the effects, no matter how documented the effects, unless or until the power structure controlled institutions say it's so, then it isn't so. And that's the world they live in. And I've had this exact conversation with academicians, some on the air. And when I tried to challenge that, then I get taken off the air. In fact, and I mentioned before on one show with Simon Donner, he's a meteorologist. He's one of the world's most well-known meteorologists from UC, British Columbia. And on air, Simon Donner said to me that first he mentioned the argument I just went over, and then he said, but I know for sure, even though it looks like they're spraying, I know for sure they're not spraying. And when I challenged that and said, how, as an academician, how can you possibly say that you know this isn't going on? I was off the air within seconds. And that's how controlled the message is. So, and Greg and Russ, you guys have had conversations with people with degrees. Greg, I know you had. You shared some of your emails with me. And these people who should know are simply either lying horrifically or in total mental denial, correct? You shared some of your emails with me with some of these people that are communicating with you.
Most definitely. And they're all PhDs, supposedly the smartest folks in society. And sadly, pretty much across the board, I find that people without a college education, some of the guys I worked with here building the cabin, they've got a lot more common sense than these PhDs are ever going to have, and they tend to question things. And, their daily bread doesn't depend on what they say and, what their feelings are in regard to this issue. So they can be more direct and less biased. Let's put it that way. When you're getting paid $100,000 to $200,000 a year, just like the doctors, some of these doctors are paid by the pharmaceutical companies to represent these pharmaceuticals. Well, gosh, if that isn't a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. And I've seen that personally with doctors where these, pretty sales girls that come in from the pharmaceutical companies. There's a reason why they hire the pretty sales girls, and the doctors are, making appointments to speak at the weekend conferences for these pharmaceuticals, and they get paid big money to do that. It's such a conflict of interest, and it's just sad. We talked the other night, Dane, about, pretty much all the regulatory agencies. There's corruption and conflicts of interest.
It's rampant in our society, isn't it? It's absolutely rampant. In fact, Greg, I mean, you and Mary Lou shared with me what one of the advertisements you saw down there where somebody got, at one of these pharmaceutical outlets, people got a 20% discount on their shopping if they got their vaccine, correct?
Oh, my God. I mean, I'm wondering what it's going to be. We'll just give you $20 off your bill if you'll take the vaccine. I mean, it's preposterous. That last essay that I wrote, I've got a picture. We took a tour around Atlanta and got pictures of the Kroger billboards. Come get your shot. They put a nice-looking, guy or gal on the billboard smiling at you. Come get your shot at Kroger and get your mercury, get your thimerosal. And you're right. That's exactly right. CVS put some banners up in their parking lot on all their light poles, 20% off, basically a discount pass. So you can, if you get your shot, you get your 20% off. So it's just really sickening. And people fall for that stuff. That's what's sad,
It is twisted how easily people are frightened and compelled to do things against their own interest. But that's how conditioned our society is. And it's we're at a stage right now. Got some background noise from somewhere there. Thanks, Russ. I know I'm getting reports from all over the planet as to people having increased respiratory issues. Russ, you're having increased issue, right? I mean, you're having quite a bit of difficulty right now where you're at with just breathing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear from a lot of other people who are as well. These always correspond with the spraying events, and the worse the air is, the worse the inflammation, the lung inflammation, the heart inflammation, the joint pain, headaches, migraines. All these things always occur together. And I'm not the only one. I've heard from hundreds and hundreds of people over the years who have these things always occur together.
From a global perspective right now, we have what can really only be described as converging catastrophes. And again, it's not about doom and gloom. It's about reality. And the more we squarely look at reality, the better chance we'll have of dealing with it in a manner that can yet do some good. And I would, on that note, encourage everybody to look at a site called ricefarmer.blogspot.com. If you just Google rice farmer, should be the top link that comes up on a Google search. This site is literally put out by a rice farmer in Japan. It's the best, most uncontaminated site that I've found for categorized stories, no politics, no advertising, just somebody who puts a lot of effort into posting articles from around the globe in a very concise fashion to give a quick update on what's happening. So encourage people to look at that site and try to keep your finger on exactly what's happening in an overall perspective, because everything is connected to everything else. And that's, again, one of the best, most untarnished, most unbiased sites that I've ever found. It's one I frequent often. If we look at this, we can see that this whole paradigm of modern civilization it's indeed in its death throes. It can only perish. It cannot continue. There's no chance of this current paradigm continuing. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. The sooner this machine of total destruction in its current form disintegrates, the more chance we'll have something left to salvage. And in the meantime, while we have the communications we have right now, all of us should be utilizing that communication to spread the alarm. And I'm hearing from so many activists now that are being so constructive in what they're doing, and this is what we've needed the whole time. People who don't need direction, who are able to carry on the battle from wherever their location is, starting spot fires everywhere they go, passing out credible data, making the right contacts, and planting the right seeds, so that, and this is a process, because with certain groups and organizations, yes, they'll initially reject what you tell them, but if you give them credible data, you've planted a seed. And as they see a story from this source or that source, then that seed will sprout. It'll have no choice, because the degree to which things are unraveling is so radical and rapid that people will simply have no choice but to wake up. And there's still media that are openly compelled to deny this issue. I got an email back yesterday. I had an email exchange with Abby Martin from RT TV. She does a show called Breaking the Set. I've had good communications with her in the past. Seemed that she was opening up to the climate engineering issue, or maybe being allowed to discuss it slightly when Putin brought it up after September 2013, when Putin mentioned or asked the IPCC to address climate engineering. It seemed like maybe Abby had a little more room to talk about it. Now, not the case. Email back from her yesterday just simply stating that she doesn't believe this is going on. But she probably has to say that. She can't really I'm sure the communications are all watched, and Russia's certainly still engaged in this, not willing to talk about it yet. So, yeah, you get those kind of rejections, but so what? So what? Still plant the seed, still continue to start the spot fires, and I'm hearing from a lot of activists that are doing exactly that. And Greg, just like what you do when you carry materials with you everywhere you go, right? Russ, you probably do too, right?
Most definitely, Dane, and I wanted to bring up a point that I think I've said it before, but I wanted to say it again to remind people that, if you got a job that's, still giving you 40-plus hours a week and you can't get out and do activism, which, we can all do activism after work. I take brochures and DVDs with me, but you can also use Facebook as anti-Facebook and boost your posts. So I do that, several times a week. If I'm busy and I can't get away from my computer or can't get away from my plant, I'll take some of your videos, Dane. Typically they do involve geoengineering, and boost them for $50 or $100, and you can reach 10, 20, 30,000 people. And if enough people did that, it could make a huge difference, because I get all kinds of new folks reacting to those boosts, and then they share, and I really think Facebook could be used as the anti-Facebook. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Diaspora. That was a company that was in the process of being created to compete with Facebook, and that young guy is no longer with us. But they do not want you to do that. They do not want you to use Facebook as the anti-Facebook. they want you to take pictures of chemtrail skies and talk about how beautiful they are and talk about how pretty your family is and how gorgeous everybody is, but I don't know that we're going to be gorgeous for long. And I really encourage people to use Facebook. You know, even if you $5 or $10, you can boost a post to a whole new group of people. You can target the group that you want to, whether they be environmental type folks or it's a powerful tool, and I think some people don't know that's able to be done. So.
Greg, that's a great idea. Is there any quick steps? Like, what do you do to do that, though, so people might be aware?
All you have to do is go down to the bottom right of your post, and it says Boost Post. And then it gives you the option of, $10, $5, $15, 40, 50, but whatever. And it tells you how many people you're going to reach. And I know I'm reaching new people every day with those boosts because they react, and they come back with comments, and so it's good. And then I see them share, so I know that they're sharing with their folks. And gosh, if thousands of people did that, I can't even imagine the pyramidal effect of how many people we could reach just with simple boosts. And I find that the boosts, you can target the groups of friends of your friends. So my brother, being a pilot, I love to target his friends. And I know some of my boosts are going directly to his pilot buddies, and then they react. And Dane's familiar with some of the conversations I have with those folks. So we continue to put the pressure on the pilot crowd because obviously they're directly involved, and they're either scared, ignorant, or are aware, and just won't say anything and need to find their courage very quickly.
They do, and Russ, I just sent you a link. Maybe you can share in the chat room from the Climate Prediction Center, National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center. This is where people can find these long lead forecast maps. And if one looks at these maps, in fact, I just sent Greg, you and Russ, a copy of the latest map for October 31st through November 4th. You can see the radical division of temperatures. I mean, absolutely radical, meteorologically unprecedented. It's now the norm where you have half or two-thirds of the country under record warm temperatures, and you'll have the other half or the other third in exceptionally cold temperatures. And this is the sort of flip-flopping that's occurring because they can't cool the whole country. And every time they try to cool a region, and they can cool regions. They absolutely can. When they float the kind of moisture over California, they just floated over. In fact, we should have gotten 5 inches of rain in the last couple days where I'm at. We got about a half an inch because they're aerosolizing that moisture, migrating it further east. And that's part of how they cool certain regions. They'll take it to the point they want to, ice nucleate it, cool the temperatures down on the surface, but at the cost of making the overall warming worse, shredding the ozone layer, killing the boreal forest, oxygen's not released. I mean, the whole system is completely derailed in ways that we can't even yet understand, from cloud microorganisms like syringae that we don't know what effect this has on these microorganisms that help cause precipitation because there's no studies. So, I mean, the whole web of life is being radically disrupted. But if people look at these maps that's on the site that I just sent to you, Russ, and people can Google this, it's the NOAA Climate Prediction Center map. In fact, if you Google that, National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center, you'll find their maps. It's really compelling to look at these maps and see just how radically out of balance everything is. But what we're seeing on these maps, this year especially, the areas that they appear to be planning on cooling down are getting much, much smaller. Methane is filling the atmosphere. Articles recently about the massive methane cloud above the continental U.S. Lots of contributors to this. Certainly the fracking and sources like that are a factor. But the methane geysers that are occurring in the Arctic right now, a much, much bigger and more ominous factor. And you simply can't hide this much longer. I don't believe they can. And thus, we weave this all back into the Ebola situation. What card is the power structure going to play as it gets impossible to hide what they've done and the degree to which it's affected every living being on the planet, certainly the entire population. The power structure becomes extremely dangerous as they're exposed, extremely dangerous. So
I've got a link in the chat room, Dane. Anybody who wants to check out the live chat room and see that link, you can go to ucy.edu It's the letters UCY.TV/GW for Geoengineering Watch. And the link is in there for them to look at. And I see these. You send me these all the time, Dane. I see the western part of the United States is over temperature. The eastern part is under temperature all the time. And we do have some callers when you're ready as well.
Yeah, go ahead and put one on, Russ. And we'll try to take questions as fast as we can and get through everybody.
Absolutely. Caller with your phone number that ends in 00. You're on with us. Who are we speaking with?
This is Dave in Connecticut, guys. I really appreciate all you guys do every week. It keeps me motivated in helping wake people up. I have a comment and a suggestion.
Go ahead.
So, Dave, you posted some great videos, of chemtrails going on and off, and the problem is right now there's so much particulates in the sky. It's hard to really point it out to people. People are like, no, that's just the sky. They don't see it. They don't have the time. Everyone has short attention span. And it's even harder now to point out, to show them it actually happening, although some days you can really see it. My suggestion is, and people aren't aware of this, a lot of people have iPhones, and with the new operating system, OS 8, there's a time-lapse video feature, which people aren't aware of. If you take a time-lapse of the sky, I did one the other day, it's amazing. Just set your camera up, leave it out for a couple of hours, in your car window or whatever, and you can really see these things laying out and spreading out, and it's undeniable. So
that's a great suggestion. That's a really, really good suggestion. And the more people record what's happening in our skies, then the more record we have and the more compelling of information they'll have to share with others. And we are certainly seeing what appears to be an effort by the climate engineers to be more covert. Very different spraying patterns in the west, where we see them shutting on when they are turning on when they move over existing aerosol cloud or natural cloud, and when they come out in open air, often we'll see them shut off. Not all the time. We have days when there's certainly the in-your-face trails from horizon to horizon, and they don't seem to care because they can't maybe mitigate the visibility on those days. But we are seeing very different spray patterns. And what people mistake, I hear this term all the time, the Kim bomb term. That term is not helpful to our cause. Anybody from academia that hears that term is going to run for cover. There is potentially that type of disbursement mechanism. It's called CARE, Chemical Aerosol Release Experiment. Use the proper science terms. But in addition to that, even if that mechanism of disbursement is being used, and people, when they see areas of aerosol clouds start to appear and they didn't see any trails, they assume that a Kim bomb has gone off. And again, that term is unhelpful. But that is not the case in most instances. If we see aircraft spraying the shorter, bright trails at higher altitude, those particulates settle down into a layer where there's enough moisture to really start showing up, and it's already dispersed, and these cobweb clouds start to appear. And that was, in most cases, aircraft dispersed aerosols. So people need to recognize, and I think that the more complicated we make the equation, the more non-science terms we use, the less traction we will have. So again, I think to keep it simple, the fact that these aerosols are being sprayed by aircraft, if there's other disbursement methods, and there probably is, that should be a lesser part of the conversation because it only complicates our issue. And in most cases, what we see in the skies are aircraft dispersed. So anyway, back to the time-lapse and people photographing not just the trails, but if they can focus in, and sometimes we're getting a lot of good footage of people that are capturing the planes turning on and off. All that's helpful to the cause. So great suggestion, caller. Great suggestion.
Yeah, if you watch it with the time lapse, you can see them going on and off. You can watch them spreading out. People, it's kind of like watching them in regular time. It's like watching a clock. Is it moving? I don't see it moving, and people don't see it. But in the time lapse, I did one video the other day, and it happened to be there was no spraying going on, but it was amazing with the clouds moving. So I'm just waiting for on a good day, and I'm gonna leave my camera out for 4 or 5 hours, and it's just, I think we'll get some amazing footage, groundbreaking stuff.
Please keep posting those. Keep that kind of compelling data coming up, and that does help to start to break down people's mental filters and helps them to see what they never saw before. So yeah, thank you for that suggestion. It's a great one, and please post that stuff.
That is a great suggestion. I think time lapse is very helpful. I took about 3 years of almost continuous time lapse here in Bangor, Maine. And you can see very clearly you can see them making it overcast. And in fact, in 2010, the Bangor Globe did a story that exposed that we had the dimmest summer in history. What they failed to mention is the dimming that happened every day after day. Almost every single day was caused from the aircraft. And that is plainly visible with the time lapse.
It is. So, I mean, that's a great suggestion, and I hope that people do follow through with that and post that data as well. You know, one thing I want to mention, too, before I forget, we should have an app. We should have an app for GeoEngineering Watch that is compatible with iPhones and Android soon. There's a very helpful group from there by Nashville, Tennessee, I believe, helping us with that app right now. So for those on mobile devices, we should have an app pretty soon for that. I just want to make an announcement. We'll announce more on Facebook and so forth later, but trying every way we can to help get the word out. But hey, thanks for that suggestion.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for marching with us in this battle.
Yeah,
Russ, awesome. Somebody else will grab.
Yep. Yeah, we sure do. Vincent was with us. Vincent, you there?
Hey, Russ. Hey, Dane. Good to talk with you guys. I wanted to call in real quick, and I post every Saturday to several geoengineering groups. And if you're listening, if you don't see me, Vincent Eastley II. That's a Roman numeral 2. If I'm not posting in your group, if you would contact me on Facebook, and I'd be glad to include that post every week. Send me a friend request, and I'd be happy for that also. But my suggestion is, or question maybe, is I'd like to see some up close, some telescopic shots of aircraft, identifying the aircraft and correlating that with the flight patterns to see which are military and which are, in fact, commercial airlines. Because I make the observation that both are applying particulates to the sky. So if you guys have got a site on one of your sites, or if you could suggest to anybody, where could we find anything like that?
Russ or Greg, I think Flight Tracker, that's one you can do, and I encourage people to do that. I mean, again, just like the earlier caller, the more people, Vincent, that are recording what's happening in the sky, sharing it with everybody around you, have them share it, the more we document this, the faster we'll bring this to critical mass. So, with Flight Tracker 24 or whatever equipment people have that are in the audience, I hope all of it's utilized to help record what's happening in our skies. All of it will help bring this issue to light.
Most of the people who've reported to me the tracking that they've done have found that these aircraft are almost exclusively not on the flight tracker. So it's a very interesting correlation we find there.
Wow. But hey, thanks, guys, and I just want to give a word of encouragement to everybody. Don't give up, because for myself,
listen to me.
I see people coming aware, even after you've told them 1,000 times. Eventually, there is a dawning on a person. So
it does sink in. Good point, Vincent. I mean, yeah, if you plant the seed, it'll eventually sprout. So don't be discouraged. Just plant it and move on, and plant some more with others.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Vincent. We have a caller whose ID did not show up for me, who's next in the queue. If you're waiting to speak, go ahead and speak up, and I think we'll have you.
Maybe it's me?
You're the one. How you doing? Who are we speaking with?
Sorry, my ID didn't show up. My name's Eddie. I'm in the Florida Keys. And first off, thank you, Dane, for what you're doing, and thanks, Greg, for helping me out. I just want to
great, Eddie. How are you today?
That's me, brother. I'm good. I don't see a single.
You were open all night last night.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the word out. People aren't seeing it down here. I'm telling everybody. They are seeing it when I show it to them. They don't know about it. Before they meet me, they haven't a clue what's going on. And I'm having a problem. My local media is really shutting me out down here. They're blocking me on Facebook. They're stopping me from telling everybody. The mayor of Key West, Craig Cates, totally shut me down. He won't even listen to me.
And are you keeping track of, if you have emails, the best way to do that is to make sure it's on an email so you have a record of them totally denying this issue even though they were given credible data, and just remind them that thank you for the denial on the record of this issue, and as it comes out, you'll have some explaining to do as to why you refuse to acknowledge this in spite of credible data. Just give them notice like that. And I had one newspaper editor that was adamantly in denial. I saved the email, sent it right back to him with a statement that he was now on the record having denied this. We would do our best to expose the fact that he was helping to hide this crime. Immediately got an email back from him singing a completely different tune. So, put him on notice that we're recording.
I will.
And, get it recorded in an email and give them notice that, in fact, we're keeping track of this. And they'll have a lot of explaining to do to their constituents if they're an elected official, or their readers if they're a newspaper, that we will republicize their denial of this crime.
And the thing that really bothers me is they're just totally ignoring me. I mean, Joe Garcia running for Congress up in Miami and here in the Keys, he's totally ignoring me. Marco Rubio's totally ignoring me. Connie Mack totally ignoring me. Bill Nelson, and I'm writing them all the time, emails and on Facebook. Even our local meteorologist, Phil Farrell, I talked to him about the chemtrails. He shuts me down. He won't even answer me. He blocks me on his Facebook page, and he's telling these brainwashed people on our local weather. There was he showed a radar about a month ago of some stuff out in the Florida Bay. He said, the Air Force said that bird's flying south. And he's seeing this on TV, all this clutter on the radar, which I know is the military or whoever it is spraying. I can't say it's the military. I don't know who it is. But he's telling the world that it's birds flying south. I just don't understand it. I just want to share what I've been seeing. I live in the Keys. I know you said not to call them chem bombs. I don't know what to call them. I'm seeing these big explosions in the sky, and
You're seeing an actual explosion?
Yeah,
you may be. You may be.
Like some kind of canister explodes, and then it spreads out, and then I'm seeing them do chemtrails in there, and they follow it in the jet stream.
You may be. Now, look, if you're seeing that, though, it's important to understand the acronym that would go with that, so people can Google that and come up with hard science. Again, the chemtrails term is not helpful to our cause. I've tried to not be too phobic of it, but I'm getting increasingly so. If anybody saw how much David Pakman, if you Google David Pakman and then my name, you'll see the interview I did with him. He's a mainstream media disinformation assault person. They sick David Pakman on whoever or whatever cause they want to try to marginalize because we're gaining too much ground. And if you see how adamantly David Pakman tried to stick to the chemtrails term, Congressman Doug LaMalfa, whom I confronted twice in the last few months, he tried to stick to that term. That's the term they've chosen to use to marginalize our issue. So, again, the climate engineering term, geoengineering term, solar radiation management terms, all more effective, or in the case of these possible canister detonations, the CARE acronym, C-A-R-E.
I remember that.
Aerosol Release Program. Use those terms and people will find hard science, and it gives instant credibility to our cause. So you may be seeing that, and I would suggest, again, if you pass out flyers to people, it helps so much. That way you don't have to go into any rant that tends to alarm people, and you've planted the seed, and it'll have a little bit of a chance to germinate before.
Dane, thanks to you, and thanks for Greg for helping me out. I've been passing out probably hundreds of flyers. The fantasy fest is going on down here in the Keys, and I'm trying to reach all the people I can, what's going on in our sky. Our sky's not blue like it's supposed to be. I mean,
no, it's going to continue. For people to understand that, go ahead.
I'm sorry, so I don't mean to interrupt you. I've got so much I want to say.
No problem. Go ahead.
Our sky has totally changed in the past 2 years. I mean, it's not true blue like it used to be. It's got like a silver tint to it so often. And I just want to say one more thing. My family's calling me an idiot. People are calling me a conspiracy theorist because I'm reporting what I'm seeing. I just don't. I can't grasp the concept of why other people's problems, the little circle of problems, is more important than what the heck's going on above our head right now.
Never, ever. So many people feel exactly what you feel. Certainly all of us, Greg, Russ, myself, we certainly understand that feeling. But no matter how much resistance you get, to thine own self be true. That's what that parable means. Never, ever turn away from your conscience. And they will see what you're trying to show them soon. They will not have a choice. They will not have a choice. In fact, with what the climate engineers are trying to hide and making it worse all the time, we have now data as of about a week ago proving conclusively, for example, that the Arctic ice that everybody's still arguing about is getting bigger, is it getting smaller. It's the sixth lowest surface area in the last 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Why are they trying so hard to hide that? Why are they lying so much about it? Because as soon as the Arctic ice, not Antarctica, the Arctic ice, as soon as that ice implodes, now the whole curtain is pulled back. Now climate engineering will be exposed. And again, when they put these statistics out, as they just did again, Arctic ice increases 29%. 29% over 2012, which was still smaller than last year. And 2012, the ice was almost gone. So 29% over nothing is not much. And they never tell you that the mass has declined 75%. Now, in the case of the Antarctic ice, mass is declining, and you never see the headline, Arctic land-based ice is expanding, because guess what? It's not. It's shrinking radically. So, again, back to climate engineering. Why is this so important? Why are they trying to hide this? Why is there so much lying going on with it? Because as soon as the Arctic ice implodes, now climate engineering will be exposed. And the whole paradigm, the whole lie that there's nothing wrong with the climate is so radically wrong that people will realize the gravity of what we face. They'll realize coastal cities are doomed. They're doomed. They're done. There's absolutely no other conclusion you can come to if you examine that data, and now all of a sudden the whole paradigm turns on its head. All this is related, and people need to connect those dots. They need to realize who would want them to not think there's anything wrong with the climate. Obviously, the climate engineers that are trying to sell their stock and trade to governments around the globe. So people need to look at hard data. And back to what you said and the resistance you've had from people, the resistance all of us have, all these points I'm making is for this reason. There are things happening right now that can't be hidden much longer, like the degree to which the climate is unraveling, the degree to which the cryosphere, the ice on the planet, is melting. Can't hide it much longer. As it becomes exposed, climate engineering will be exposed with it. Our paradigm will be turned on its head, I believe. The power structure will play whatever cards they have, whether that's Ebola or some other false flag. And I don't mean to say false in regard to Ebola being false. People are dying. I just simply mean it's a manipulated pathogen. So they may play that card all the way.
I want to say one more thing. I want to give other callers a chance to call in. This year in the Keys, it's been in the 90s, and it's not supposed to get in the 90s down here. I believe what they're doing is creating a blanket. I seriously believe that. And I've been getting headaches nonstop lately for a few months now. My girl's been getting headaches, and we live in the middle of an ocean, so I just don't see. I can't tie that to allergies. And
it's not. I mean, it's clearly the particulates.
I think this Ebola thing is a scare tactic, and I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but what the hell are they releasing?
Well, it is a scare. I mean, it is a tactic, but that doesn't mean that they can't play that tactic. You know, a gun can be pointed at your head, used to scare you, but it can also go off and kill you. So, right. I mean, people need to understand that this thing could go either way with Ebola. It depends on how far they want to play it. In regard to what you said about them creating a heat dome, you're right. We see that in California. We think there absolutely appears to be applications where they're trying to create excessive heat in order to try and create excessive high pressure, which spins clockwise in the northern hemisphere to spin the jet stream in a certain manner. Because on certain days when we see the silvery white skies, the UV readings are higher, not lower. They appear to create a lens effect. So again,
can I also say? I'm sorry to interrupt you again, Dane.
No.
Can I also say I work out in the sun. Last year I stayed in the sun for hours. The 30 minutes of sun exposure this year, I'm getting blisters. I'm burning.
Absolutely, it's going to get worse because everything.
And I don't believe that's psychosomatic. I don't. It's really happening.
No, it's not.
To my lip, to my nose.
No, it's not your imagination. We're seeing UVB off the charts. I mean, it's regularly 900, 1,000% higher than we're being told. That's UVB specifically. So it's not your imagination. Again, they can cool off areas, ice nucleated snow. They cool some temperatures down on the ground at the cost of shutting the ozone layer, trapping more heat than they deflect. It's a very, very vicious downward negative cycle. But hey, your observations are valid. Keep posting them. Keep passing out those flyers. Those people who reject.
You know what? We're paying them to spray us like cockroaches.
Anyway, they can print all the money they want. You know, keep that in mind.
I know.
But hey, thanks for your observations. Keep it coming and keep posting everything everywhere you can.
You're awesome, Dane. You're awesome, Craig. Thanks, Russ. I'll see you all soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Shout out to you, Eddie, for getting kicked off your bucket and putting up with getting spit on. Dane, I just read a post by Eddie down there, and I sent him that box last week of all the TVs and brochures, and he's going through hell.
Yeah, he's a good guy. It's
Hey,
good
thank
you called
guys.
in.
Thank you,
I
guys.
think we're done.
GeoEngineering Watch Radio. We're here on
Thank you, guys.
UY.TV every Saturday at 12 noon Pacific. Yeah,